What's going on, people? Welcome to another one. This is Candid Talk with your host, Rasheen Winter Harris. Drug up! But I'm back with my good friend, special guest,
Emperor Shaq Daddy in the building.
Emperor Shaq Daddy. Pause. Yeah, we got the Emperor in the building, and today we actually going to talk about what it requires to be successful, and sometimes that's being selfish. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that today. But yeah, join us. Let's get it. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and share this video. And here we go, Candid Talk.
It's Candid Talk where we lay it down. No room for fakes, we wear the crown.
So to be successful, like pretty much the thing is that it requires to be selfish. Do you agree with that?
To a certain extent.
What do you mean to a certain extent? Like, what does that even mean?
Okay.
That's like you saying maybe yes and no.
No, to a certain extent. Because at the end of the day, according to what your level of success is, maybe you can achieve that by being selfish. But for most of us that really want big things, you need a team. So when it comes to the being selfish part, we're not talking about doing it on your own, but only doing things that progress you.
Mm.
And when I'm selfish about things, if I'm doing something with someone and I can't see any benefit on my behalf, then
Mm.
I got to let that alone.
Mm.
And most of the times, it's not about money because I can't expect money from a well that ain't got no water. If you are trying to do a project, you ain't got no money, and then I'm supposed to do this project with you, but then I can't see no benefit from it at all. And sometimes there is a little bit of benefit, but then you realize how people are running that shit, and you realize, oh, this ain't gonna go nowhere.
Well, it sounds like you need to be selfish because I'm gonna say you got to be a little bit selfish to be successful, and I think everybody that's actually successful has been a bit selfish because
Yeah,
just like what you just said, paying attention to somebody's project, realizing it's not going nowhere, that's the selfish nature, and you realizing that I need to focus on me.
right. Or find somebody else to work with because, like I said,
Yeah.
other people may be on to something and their projects are great. And if you tag on with them, they have connections that you can get onto. So,
Something like
to a
that.
certain extent, yeah, you got to be selfish and make sure that you make choices or decisions that are going to help you and your brand grow. So, yeah, selfish to a certain extent. I mean, more so selfish than selfless,
Yeah.
definitely. So, yeah, that's why I
I
said
don't
to a
think you
certain
need to be
degree.
self-centered.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, now
So I
that's a
think what
good
you're
way to
describing, I think
differentiate it.
what you're describing is self-centered a little bit more versus selfish.
Hmm.
Selfish is literally when you start thinking like, I gotta make sure I'm getting the best for me, and sometimes the best for you could benefit others as well.
Hmm.
And that like, I think the way we work, 'cause, like we know we like quality in general. So let's say if we casting or we shooting a project, we're gonna have quality to start with, and I'm gonna try to build around that.
Hmm.
So at least if you're on my team, you know, we're gonna start with something here, and then we're gonna be able to build up. Versus some
Right.
people, like you said, they'll have some down here, and they're trying to get you to keep pulling along.
And then there are some
Yeah,
people that don't do anything because they waiting on perfection, which if you had the perfect formula, you would already be where you need to be. And because you aren't there yet,
speak on that. Keep
find a
yeah,
level and let's perfect that level
yeah,
or get
yeah.
as close to perfection as you can because nothing's perfect. But work on where you are and develop that. Don't try to say you're going to shoot for or wait for the perfect time or the best time to do
I don't think
anything.
there is a perfect time
There
to be
isn't.
honest. Yeah, I don't know exactly what
But
that
a
is.
lot of people, they wait for that.
Yeah.
They wait for all these different pieces to fall into place, and then it's too late because your drive is gone.
Mm.
And when your
Mm-hmm.
drive is gone, you might have great quality, but you're not putting in the nitty gritty of being the hungry one that you were 5 years ago when you was waiting on this perfect
Mm-hmm.
time to come.
I think when you listen, because there's a positive and a negative when it comes to being selfish.
Hmm.
To when you're aiming for success, because sometimes being selfish like I said, in a positive way, just not having time for people.
Mm.
Not having time for certain situations and events.
Yep.
That's more what I mean about being selfish in order to achieve success.
Okay.
Now, being selfish in a way where you kind of just not doing anything and just putting people to the side. Like, nah, if you actually have goals and you're hitting these goals or at least aiming to hit these goals,
Right.
yeah, you kind of have to. You kind of it's really discipline because selfish.
Right.
It's really when you're super disciplined. I just won't do that. So
And
on the flip
sometimes you got to
side,
be there. Sometimes you got to be there.
yeah,
This is just something I'm not willing to do.
yeah, because that's when you really know your. That's what it's really when you know yourself and what you want at that
Right.
point.
And then if you're going to do it like that, make sure that you're giving whatever the audience is you're presenting to what they're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people like to cut off certain demographics because they don't want to be associated with it. But what you do might be the thing that sparks fire under that particular audience. So now you're
Mm-hmm.
missing your biggest profit. So at the end of the day, for me, when I'm doing the entertaining and everything else, I don't care. I'm giving the people what they want.
Yeah, nah, fair.
Now, if they want to sit down and have an interview with me and ask me how I feel about the topic and I don't agree with it, and then they ask me, well, why did you end up doing this? Because my audience wanted me to.
Hmm.
And I give people what they want in this entertainment world because that's how you succeed. And if
Mm.
you aren't willing to give them what they want, then please believe no one's going to want to see you.
Mm. So far, what's the pros we said from at least being selfish to be successful? Not wasting your time in situations.
Hmm.
What was
With
another one?
people or
With people
situations.
or situations. Discipline.
Hmm.
That's one thing that you'll achieve success with when you're actually being selfish, not self-centered though.
Hmm.
How do
So
you think somebody stops from being self-centered versus being selfish though? Like, because I think that's a thin line, and I think a lot of people cross over, and then that's when they start kind of almost using people, manipulating situations. So how do you think somebody can stop themselves? Because I know
okay,
everybody is passionate about achieving success, so it's
I
easy.
see
What I say to
self-centered.
go to the dark side. You know what I mean?
See, you said there's a thin line between the two. I think there's a dark haze between the two
Explain what you mean.
because there's a lot of reasoning as to why a person is self-centered.
Mm.
Because people don't just come out the womb and be self-centered.
Mm.
People don't just grow up and become elementary school students and are self-centered. There's a lot of things that progress, like we talked about in that trauma episode, that create a self-centered person.
Mm.
And that dark haze between whatever the situation was that made you not want to do things with others or help others to getting to this point of now you're self-centered and think that you got it all known and made and everything else when you really don't, which is definitely a catastrophic Titanic crash. You got to just realize that from being self-ish, meaning making the right choices, going in the right direction, knowing when to cut things off when they're not, moving in the direction you need to move into, to being at a point where you're like, fuck this, I'm all for me and no one else, nothing else, and I'm going to do it and I'm going to make it happen. Which, if you don't have the drive that comes with the passion for whatever you're going after, self-centeredness will never get you there. It's going to ruin you. You are going to be stuck on a plank of wood out in the ocean by yourself without a paddle.
Nah, fact. I ain't gonna lie. I kind of went to a whole fantasy land halfway through some of that. I was just like, fuck these people.
Right. Because I've been there.
I don't really have.
I've been at a point where I was just so self-centered, like I'm gonna make this happen the way I can, however I can,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
all the
how
time.
a lot of that mastery of nothing happened.
Yeah,
Because
I
I
kind
did
of.
some of everything,
Yeah, I
anywhere
know.
from stilt walking to director to
You walked on stilts.
I still walk on stilts,
That was different.
right?
All right,
To
fair enough.
landscaping. What the fuck am I doing out in the yard landscaping? Right.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
That's a fact.
And I felt like the only way that I could do me and get the money that I needed was to do something that maybe is a labor intensive, but I know it pays. So let me go handle that so I can get the money to do other things that I need to do.
No, it's definitely landscaping is actually good work for that. I'm not getting out there. I don't like being out. Most of the time it's hot weather or cold weather.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not a weather person. I sweat in all weather.
Well, I just don't like really labor.
Nah, I feel that. Me neither. Though.
Like I will
I mean,
labor
I don't
for
mind labor sometimes, but I don't
I
like
will
it when
labor
I
for a
have to.
passion,
Yeah, for a
but
passion.
I'm
Like I
not
said, I
just
don't like when I have to.
right.
That's a big difference.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, yeah, all of it.
Now, on other terms of
Like selfish and like I said for success. Uh, yeah,
when
I
it
don't,
comes to success and selfishness like that, like we were
it's a thin
saying,
line between that and self-centered overall. But God,
I really feel like to be successful, there's a lot of things that come in with that, but selfishness is definitely one of those things that's I'll say that's walking on thin ice, man. You thin line, thin ice, whatever, to the extent of be careful not to allow your ego to knock you out of the runnings for opportunities. Because a lot of people do that with the self-centered part of it all. Because it's one thing to not take a role because maybe, say for instance, the role calls for you to have to travel way out here, so you're going to end up spending more money getting to the set to do what you need to do than you're making on the check. Now, for one person, it might be, I just want the experience. For another person, it may be, I can't put myself in a situation where I'm not able to pay my bills because I went way over here to do this and had to get a hotel and whatever, what have you. So it's judgment. It's judgment and what you prioritize. And it's a little difficult to navigate those waters sometimes. It really is.
no, especially when you're an entrepreneur, but anybody in general. But if you're achieving success, however you're doing it, but just I say just be aware of your environment and how you affect others around you as well, because that's one way to tell if you're being self-centered or selfish in some situation. Because that the way you affect others is pretty much when you start going into that self-centered path, and you become a tyrant.
Right. Your
And
ego gets in the way.
yeah, big egos. So just be careful of your ego and I guess running over people with an ego overall. 'Cause, yeah, nobody likes that. Nobody got time
No.
for that. And eventually you're gonna rub everybody wrong when nobody wants to be around
Right.
you.
No one's going to
So
want to work with you anyway. So
yeah, once people don't want to work with you, it's over for you.
it's
So
over.
you become known for that.
Right.
Like I forgot what celebrity it was. I think it was it Eminem? Oh, I can't remember. I don't want to put nobody out there. Yeah, it was a couple people that people be like,
Well,
yeah,
I've
I just
seen a
can't.
couple of people in the background realm
Yeah, in the background around
that
as
have
well.
run themselves off of so many different sets till
I've seen
I
people get
haven't
kicked out, kicked
that
off
too.
sets just because you're doing too much.
Right.
And it's just read the room. Like
Please.
context blindness is a real thing. We're gonna talk about
It
that eventually one of
is.
these days.
Oh my
Probably on the
gosh.
next. We probably could do that on one of these follow ups. But overall, I don't have nothing else for this one. You hit it nail in the wall. Pause. I don't know. I'm gonna say that anyway. But anyway, but yeah, just pay attention to your environment, people. Read the room. Read how you affect other people. And for yeah, that's it. Peace to the guy. Peace to the guy. Make sure y'all hit that like, subscribe, comment, and share.